Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody, no matter where you are. Thank you for being here. And today I want to just give you a perspective on what happened in 2020. It's my own perspective, so I don't claim to speak for everyone who works with me at Climate Healers, but this is my view of what happened. So I'm going to share a presentation with you. So you see, so you can follow along. And basically, this year has been unique. No one could have predicted what happened. And this is why it sort of wakes me up to the larger perspective. The larger perspective is that we are part of nature. And in nature is fundamentally perfect. So I got this realization when I went to this sanctuary in the Western Ghats of India back in 2009. And I saw how every animal, every species just belongs. I mean, they just do their thing and they're contributing more than they take from nature. And so they're bringing back the forest. So literally this forest used to be a coffee plantation 20 years ago. And it got turned into a forest by the animals who came and dropped seeds and created new trees. So in nature has this perfect system design that has evolved over billions of years. And when humanity tries to hack into nature, we tend to do things that are imperfect. So when I asked the owners of this sanctuary, how did you make this happen? They said, well, we did nothing. The animals did everything, but we had to patrol the land and make sure that no human being comes inside. So I felt like there was some flaw in nature. The one flaw in nature is that it created human beings. So I felt really small. I felt as if I don't even belong on Earth, right? But then a year later, when my granddaughter was born, she convinced me instantly that we belong exactly as we are and that I'm not telling the right story. Because she had that same sense of perfection. She brought the same sense of perfection in me. It said, okay, so we must belong exactly as we are, and that we're not telling the right story. And that set me on this journey of discovering our story and how we belong on Earth. So I'm going to tell you what happened in 2020 from that perspective that we belong in nature and that we have been doing something that we didn't even understand. So from that perspective, COVID-19, which was the major event in 2020, COVID-19 is nature putting us in the chrysalis phase. So we have been acting as caterpillars for so long. We've been consuming for the last 10,000 years. And basically, this pandemic put a stop to that and said, okay, now you go back to your room and think about what you've done and decide what you want to become when you come out of that room. So this is Mother Nature basically putting us in our room. So giving us a timeout and making us think about what we have done so far. So essentially it's about awareness and then acknowledgement of what we have done and then making amends. Okay, so awareness, acknowledgement, amends. This is what Rebecca was telling me yesterday. So this perspective says that we are part of nature and that nature is actually always in charge and that she's giving us messages as to how we should be behaving. So it is part of the greatest transformation in human history, and we are in the middle of it. Can you imagine that? I mean, we're in the middle of the greatest transformation in human history. I call it a transformation because transformation is something that we choose to do, as opposed to change, which nature forces on us. As I said, nature is a perfect system design, meaning no matter when we decide to transform, nature will be fine. It's us. It's up to us to decide how much suffering we want to take, whether we want to get into alignment with nature now or we want to keep hacking at nature and figuring out a new vaccine and a new way of continuing to destroy the planet. If we put our minds to that, we are just going to suffer more, and eventually it'll come along. So this is why transformation is something that we choose to do. And so we always have a choice as to when we want to do it. And the more we transform, the sooner we transform, the less suffering we will have. Because in nature, every species has a role. So when you look at an elephant and you see the elephant breaking branches of trees, you may think the elephant is being destructive. But in reality, wherever the elephant broke branches of trees, that's where the sunlight streams and nourishes the underbrush. So no matter what the elephant does, elephant belongs in nature. Elephant is doing something that contributes to nature. In the same way, we belong exactly as we are, and we have been contributing unconsciously to nature, and yet we didn't know it, right? Because we have been playing a role as the climate regulators of planet Earth. That is our role. In fact, when we acknowledge that human beings are changing the climate of the planet, which majority of people now acknowledge that human beings are changing the climate of the planet, then we automatically assume responsibility for maintaining that climate. Okay, so if you have the power to change the climate, you have the power to maintain it. So this is why we have this role, and we've always had this role as the climate regulators of planet Earth. But for the first 10,000 years, when we started agriculture, we were not conscious of our role. We were just doing it unconsciously. Just like the elephant is not conscious that when she breaks branches of trees, she's allowing sunlight to stream and nourish the underbrush. She's just eating some leaves, and throwing the branch away. In the same way, we were mindlessly chopping down forests and for agriculture and animal agriculture, and in the process we heated up the planet. Well, we heated up the planet, meaning we kept the temperature constant, and we prevented the planet from going back to another ice age. And over the last 200 years, we have built all the tools and technologies to be conscious of what we have done. So now we understand what we did over the last 10,000 years. And now we can become conscious as the climate regulators of the planet. Okay? So which is why I believe in future, kids are going to school in order to become climate healers. They're going to graduate knowing how to deal with the earth and the earth's climate, and how to deal with other species, and how to serve other species. So that will be the education system of the future. So this is our role. So, and it's becoming increasingly clear to me that this is the role that we've always had. Right? The role for human beings is to be the climate regulators. And we are assuming this role one by one, individually, even though the system is fighting us. Okay? So let me tell you the story of Paul Chapman, which illustrates how we are transforming one by one and the system is fighting us. Paul Chapman, back in 2013, couldn't walk 10 steps without feeling excruciating chest pain. So he went to his doctor. And the doctor said, you better go to a cardiologist right away. So the cardiologist examined him and told him, okay, your heart is enlarged, your right side of the heart is thickened, and one of your major arteries is 100% blocked. Two of your major arteries are 65% blocked. And so you're going to die unless you either have a triple bypass heart surgery or you go on a whole food plant-based vegan diet. Now, Paul was fortunate that he got that second choice. Very few doctors, very few cardiologists give you the second choice. They just say you have to have a triple bypass surgery. So Paul got that second choice and he chose it. So he chose to go on a whole food plant-based vegan diet. So his cardiologist connected him with Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who taught him how to do it. So he had to take a cooking class for 1 month where he was taught how to cook and eat a healthy way. And he did it, and he reversed his heart disease. Okay, then he decided to file a claim with his insurance company, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and ask them for reimbursement on this. Now, his story is there on his website, so you can read it up. So, and when he asked them for it, they refused. So he took it all the way to headquarters. And finally, headquarters told him, look, we don't have a code for cooking classes. Because Paul pointed out the absurdity of them willing to pay $125,000 for a triple bypass surgery, but they were not willing to pay $975 for a cooking class. So they told him, look, we don't have a code for a cooking class. So if you really want a code for cooking class, you have to get the legislature to change the policies. So that is the system we have. It has no code for the cure, but plenty of codes to make money off our diseases. Because that's how we have optimized our system. It's all about how to make money off our diseases. But individuals like Paul are curing ourselves. So we are curing themselves, right? And so now we have to look at how do we get the whole system to align with who we have become. Because in Western countries, 14 of the 15 leading causes of death can be mitigated and even reversed with the whole foods plant-based vegan diet. This is what Dr. Michael Greger showed in his book, How Not to Die. So literally the way we eat and the food we consume is causing most of our death. I mean, this is even worse than smoking, right? The food industry has been causing so much more death than even the tobacco industry. So 14 of the 15 leading causes of death, and they're all listed on the right-hand side from CDC. And you can see the only one we cannot address with the whole food plant-based vegan diet is doctors' mistakes, iatrogenic causes. And 4 of those leading causes of death, heart disease, lung disease, diabetes, and hypertension, are the 4 comorbidities for COVID-19 fatalities. Meaning if people have these 4, then they're more likely to die. Okay? So we know that, and we know that we can boost our immune system by just eating a whole food plant-based vegan diet and then become more robust to these pandemics. Now, at the same time, hunger-related causes are killing more people globally than any other ailment. So people are not getting enough food. About 1 billion people are not getting enough food. And about 20 million of them, about 10 million of them are dying from hunger-related causes every year. And even in the richest country in the world, in America, 97% of the people are not getting enough fiber. 98% are not getting enough potassium. 94% lack vitamin D. 89% lack vitamin E. And 44% lack calcium, for heaven's sake. But calcium. I mean, I thought, dairy had calcium, right? You would think that Americans would get enough calcium because they're eating so much cheese. But 44% of Americans don't get enough calcium because we've been lied to about our nutrition. We've been lied to about what is in each of these foods that we eat. So you ask, if the richest country has so much malnutrition and the poor countries don't have enough food, is it because we don't have enough food on the planet? Is there too many of us? Is that what's going on? And it turns out it's the exact opposite. There's plenty of food on the planet. In fact, we are extracting 6 times as much food as we really eat. But most of it is going to our animals. So we're extracting 9 billion tons of food from 45% of the land area of the planet. And we only eat 1.54 billion tons of food, which is shown on the right-hand side here in this block diagram. So you see, and most of the food we eat is already plant-based. Okay, so 1.35 billion tons is already plant-based. Only 0.19 billion tons is animal-based. Less than 15% is animal-based. And to get that 15% of the food, we are actually using up most of the food we extract from the planet. We're giving it to our animals, and they give us 0.26 billion tons of food. And then that goes into the industrial processing block, in which a bunch of it gets wasted. And so only 0.19 billion tons get to our plate. So there's almost a 40-to-1 reduction in food that goes through the animal. In addition, the animals are providing like 0.14 billion tons of other substances like blood, bones, and skin that we use for other things in our industries. This is why the vegan movement is causing such a huge system change. It's causing a system disruption. Why? Because vegans are insisting that they don't want animals in anything they purchase. So they don't want animals to be used for their clothing or their food or for experimentation, for anything, right? So which means they are insisting that this block, this livestock production block, should be thrown away. And this disrupts the whole system because we are eating the food directly from plants and we are wearing plant-based clothing and so on and so forth. So nothing that we use comes from animals. And so, but fundamentally, our food system is an engineering shambles. With 6 times as much food, we should be able to feed everybody. Okay, we should be able to feed everybody nutritious food. But that's not what the food system is optimized for. It's not optimized to make sure that everyone gets the nutrition they need. It is optimized to make sure that the richest person gets the most exotic food at any time. That's what it's optimized for. So from an engineering perspective, we have the wrong objective function. If we tell an engineering team, go make sure that the food system provides nutrition to everybody, we can easily do this. This is not rocket science. Okay? It's fairly simple stuff. There's plenty of food on the planet. But because we are using animals and pretending that we need to eat these animal foods, we are causing so much disruption on the planet. Our environmental destruction comes from animal foods. In fact, if we look at the biomass of animals in our weight class, okay, that gives you a really good idea of how fast we need to change. Because that classification is where we come in and we say we're going to take up all the space. We and our animals are going to take up all the space on the planet, and there is no room for the other animals like tigers and leopards, and they all have to die off. And they are dying off. So 10,000 years ago, all the wild animals, megafauna, wild animals, were about 200 million tons. That was their weight. So this was the total of all the species put together. And we were a tiny little blip on top of that. And by 1970, we had wiped out 60% of the wild animals. And our population was such that our weight was equal to the weight of all the wild animals that lived 10,000 years ago. And our farmed animals were double our weight, but they were eating 3 times as much food as we eat. And therefore, they presented the profile of a biomass that's triple our biomass. Now, between 1970 and 2020, we wiped out another 80% of the wild animals. So which means wild animals are now only 8% of what they used to be 10,000 years ago. Human beings, we are now double our weight. Double the weight of all the wild animals that lived 10,000 years ago. And our farmed animals are the equivalent of 9 times the biomass of all the wild animals that lived 10,000 years ago. So it's completely unsustainable load we are carrying around unnecessarily. And why are they so big? Is because we have genetically selected our farmed animals to eat way more food than their weight alone would indicate. Like the average dairy cow weighs 1,700 pounds and eats 140 to 150 pounds of food a day. Whereas the average white rhinoceros weighs 5,100 pounds. So triple the weight of a dairy cow, but only eats 120 pounds of grass a day. So which means, as far as the planet is concerned, the dairy cow weighs more than a white rhinoceros. Right? So if we calculate according to that measure, our farmed animals are 9 times the biomass of all the wild animals that lived 10,000 years ago. And we cannot continue to do this. In fact, if we continue to do this until 2026, this circle is going to be almost nothing. And then it will be very hard for us to bring them back. So the first step in any change, any transformation we need to do is to become aware of of what we need to do, acknowledge that we are responsible for what has happened, and then make amends. And how do you make amends here? You need to go vegan. No question, just go vegan so that we can get rid of this albatross we're carrying around our neck, and then give room for our wild animals to come back. And animal agriculture is the leading cause of ecosystems collapse too. Because why is the forest not coming back when we cut down forests? Because the seeds are still there in the soil. Why is the forest not coming back? Because we keep burning anything that the animals don't eat, and then we're letting the animals eat everything else. So the animals make sure that the forest never comes back, because they're eating anything new that's growing on the ground. So this is the leading cause of desertification, of farming of animals. And it is also animal agriculture is the leading solution to climate change, meaning if we shut it down, we can solve climate change. So the best way to solve climate change is to first shut down animal agriculture as soon as possible, and then power down the fossil fuel infrastructure 10% per year over the next 10 years. Now, we have written a white paper saying that animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. But you can you can actually manipulate the accounting and make it look like it is not the leading cause. You can pretend that climate change is a long-term issue, and we need to look over a 100-year time period, and then make it so that the animal agriculture has less and less impact, right, compared to fossil fuels. Or you can say, I don't care about the land use, and pretend that land use has no impact. So that's how we have been pretending that fossil fuels are the leading cause of climate change. But when it comes to solutions, it is an engineering problem. And with an engineering problem, you have to look for an engineering solution. And the only way to solve climate change is to first shut down animal agriculture and then power down the fossil fuel infrastructure 10% per year over the next 10 years. If we do the opposite, if we first shut down the fossil fuel infrastructure, we will deliberately heat up the planet by another 1 watt per square meter, and we will cause way more suffering. It's the absolute stupidest thing to do. So I'm just shocked at all these reputable organizations going around only focusing on fossil fuels and not talking about animal agriculture, because it shows a level of scientific illiteracy or engineering illiteracy that is truly shocking, because they all have degrees. In animal agriculture, what we are doing to animals is the root cause of COVID-19. So Dr. Anthony Fauci said this in, I think it was March or April of this year. He said, it boggles my mind how when we have so many diseases that emanate out of that unusual human-animal interface, that we don't just shut it down. So I got curious about that. And I went to Dr. Aisha Akhtar, who is an expert on infectious diseases. And we had this Corona Healers Education and Solutions Summit starting in April and May. And I asked her, so what is this unusual human-animal interface? What makes pandemics happen? And she said, it's any interface in which animals are stressed. So stressed animals spawn diseases. So where are the animals stressed? It's not just in the wet markets of China. They're stressed in the wet markets of New York City, stressed in the factory farms of Europe, the factory farms of North Carolina. They're stressed in the labs. They're stressed in zoos. They're stressed in circuses. So wherever animals are stressed, it is a potential source of another pandemic. So every time we stress animals, we're asking for it, right? We're saying, yeah, show me what you got. And of course, nature is going to once in a while show you what you got and make us change. So we need to stop stressing animals. It's as simple as that if you want to avoid pandemics. Animals have been the source of so many of our infectious diseases, not just COVID-19, but swine flu, mad cow disease, bird flu, Ebola, SARS. I mean, they all came from animals. Going back, cholera, typhoid, leprosy. I mean, they all came from animals. So Dr. Michael Greger has He's compiled all this data showing this. And one of the great things that happened this year is that we became aware of it. Until 2020, I didn't know that most pandemics were caused by animals. But despite this, the President Trump issued an executive order in late April and early May, saying that slaughterhouses are critical infrastructure and that slaughterhouse workers are essential frontline workers, as if this is some military war that we are fighting, and our slaughterhouse workers are the frontline soldiers in this war. And so Isaac Bailey wrote an opinion piece in CNN talking about the immorality of asking fellow humans to risk their lives so that we can eat a burger. And that got me thinking. I said, of course he's right. It is absolutely immoral what we are doing to animals, and it's immoral what we are doing to the workers in the system. And so I sent out a call for papers so that we can compile a book on it. And within 4 months, we had a book on Amazon. It's incredible the response that we got from the vegan community. So this is an anthology of about 20 essays, and from various perspectives, from environmental perspectives, from religious perspectives, from social justice perspectives. You'll see why animal agriculture is absolutely immoral. And it is dedicated to all the animals with whom we share this beautiful planet, and to all the children who will inherit the consequences of our choices. Right? So it's available on Amazon. This came out in September, I think, or October of this year. And please review it and purchase it, and let us spread the word. And then we had a convergence in October, and we decided to do this convergence every quarter. So we're going to have the next one end of January. And this time the convergence was entirely online. In the previous years, our convergences were all held in Arizona, in Mesa, Arizona. And this time we did it online. And it was over 2 days, and we came up with a strategic action plan, which we're going to unveil the document for it very soon. And basically, we talked about what do we need to do to get to a vegan world by 2026, and how COVID-19 has accelerated the whole process. Yeah. Literally made more and more people become aware of the impact of our dealings with animals. And the great thing is that towards the end of the year, we had this 11 days of enlightening our way together event, which was organized by our indigenous brothers and sisters from around the world. And they met for 11 days. And then on the 12th day, the 11th day ended on December 21st, the solstice. And the solstice this year was very unique because it had Saturn and Jupiter co-aligned with the Earth and the Sun. So it was this bright star in the sky. And according to the prophecies of the Native Americans, that is a signal that they will rise up and lead humanity out of the mess that we are in. And so they rose up, and they wrote up a treaty to protect and restore Mother Earth, and they all signed it. And it's open to all of us to sign as well. And in that treaty, in Article 15, they said, we, the members of the human family, commit to eliminating the exploitation of our animal relatives. It's very explicit. Okay? So I'm so thrilled that the leadership is coming from the indigenous community, and that they have acknowledged this, and that they are going to make it right with the animals. And so the immediate action that's needed from all of us is to make sure that healthy, immune-boosting vegan meals are readily available to every human being, especially to our indigenous brothers and sisters. because they are taking the lead and we need to help them. And we need to make sure that these meals are available to them, because right now they are living in food deserts where it's impossible to get these good foods, almost impossible. So we need to help them out with this. And this is the Food Healers Initiative. And we are going to be working on this next year. So COVID-19, in my opinion, has put us in the chrysalis phase and has given us this moment of choice. Well, some of us are trying to go back to being caterpillars again, so desperately coming up with vaccines and things so that we can continue with our exploitation of animals. And but that we know is going to just lead to the next pandemic. We know that. So this is our moment of choice. You want to keep doing the same stupid thing over and over, or do you want to think about becoming butterflies? And I think we will all be making the right choice. So this is part of the greatest transformation in human history. And I mean, I never tire of telling people this. We're sitting on the ledge. We are about to go over the ledge, and so we know what's going to happen if we do that. We're going to go extinct, or we can transform from a system of normalized violence to a system of normal non-violence, from a predator species to a caretaker species, from Homo sapiens sapiens. We call ourselves the wise hominid in Latin. Okay? And I've never met anyone who is truly wise going around saying he's wise, and the two twice. So I think we deserve a new name. And Judy Carman had come up with this new name of Homo ahimsa, which is a combination of a Latin word and a Sanskrit word, which signifies that we are coming together as a species from around the world. And ahimsa means non-violent, so describes us, our character, as opposed to our characteristic. Instead of pretending to be wise, we can just say we are non-violent, which is how we are going to act. And that requires the 7 core shifts from speciesism, colonialism, racism, and all the isms, the domination oppression paradigm, to veganism and radical sacredness, the ahimsa and sacred relationships paradigm, from diseases and divisiveness for humanity to health and harmony and diversity for humanity, from destruction and exploitation of the planet to regeneration and caretaking of the planet, from violence and cruelty to animals to kindness and compassion for animals, from an egocentric culture of consumerism to an ecocentric culture of accountability, from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of generosity, and from a profit-driven economy to a service-driven economy. And what we claim is that the game of money that we are playing is automatically making us do everything on the left-hand side of these shifts. It is built into the game. It's not a problem with human beings and our nature. It's the game that we are playing that's causing us to do this. And we can always change that game. So we can come up with a new game that automatically does everything on the right-hand side of this transformation. And we have designed a game like that. It's a matter of implementing it, and which we are going to do next year, because I'm teaching a couple of courses and I have a bunch of students who are going to be helping me do this. So there you go. We are on track to do the greatest transformation in human history. And Kimaya said yesterday, we can do this. We can do this. We can meet this pinky promise. We can pull this off with all of us coming together and making it happen. So thank you all very, very, very much for being here, for listening to this. And I am grateful to be alive at this time, to be alive with all of you. So with that, I shall end this.